Dad's silent revenge.
The rain was hammering my cabin windows like bullets when I heard the knock. Nobody comes out here to Vancouver Island, especially not in weather like this. The road's barely more than a logging trail, and most folks gave up on me after Melissa died last year. I'm Brady Collins, 60 years old, retired high school teacher, and I've been living alone in this place since my world fell apart. My son Kyle disappeared on a ski trip 2 years ago. My wife Melissa passed from cancer 6 months later. Now it's just me, a bottle of whiskey, and too many memories. But that knock changed everything. I opened the door and there stood Trevor, my younger brother. Hadn't seen him in 15 years, not since our big falling out over Dad's estate. He was soaked through, expensive coat dripping onto my porch, with a black Mercedes sitting in my driveway. "Brady," he said, same steady voice I remembered. "Get in the car. I know where Kyle is." My legs nearly gave out. "What did you just say? Your son Kyle? He's alive. And if we don't move fast, he might not stay that way." I should have slammed the door, should have called it the cruelest joke imaginable. But Trevor had always been a lot of things: arrogant, selfish, greedy, but never a liar. Not about something like this. "You've got 60 seconds to explain before I throw you off my property." He glanced back at the Mercedes. "I'll explain in the car. We need to go now, Brady. I've got proof and I've got a location, but I also know people are watching. Every minute we waste gives them time to move him, move him." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think straight. "I've been working as a private investigator for 8 years. Trevor said quickly. "Started after my divorce, after the construction business went under. I've been looking into Kyle's disappearance for 6 months. Not because you asked, I know you wouldn't, but because I saw your daughter-in-law Ashley on the news and something didn't sit right. Ashley, my son's wife. The woman I'd welcomed into our family like she was my own daughter. What about Ashley? She collected a $500,000 life insurance payout last month. But Brady, I found things, bad things. Kyle's death was staged. The world tilted sideways. The RCMP investigated. They found his ski equipment. They found what they were supposed to find. A ski pole, some goggles. Easy enough to plant when you've got money and motivation." Trevor stepped closer. "Kyle discovered Ashley was embezzling from his company. She was working with her lover, a guy named Tyler Morrison, who was Kyle's business partner. When Kyle threatened to expose them, they made him disappear." I gripped the door frame. "You're saying my daughter-in-law betrayed your son for money, and she's been playing the grieving widow perfectly while Kyle's been locked away in a private care facility." Trevor pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. This was taken yesterday. On the screen was Kyle, thinner, bearded, sitting in a wheelchair staring at nothing. But it was him. My boy was alive, where I whispered. A facility outside Kelowna. Kyle's listed as David Foster, a brain injury patient with no family. Bills paid by a trust connected to Tyler Morrison. Trevor's jaw was tight. They've been keeping him drugged, Brady. Heavy sedatives to keep him docile and confused. I grabbed my coat without another word. The Mercedes was warm inside, leather seats, and the smell of expensive cologne. Trevor had done well for himself after our family business collapsed. We drove in silence for the first few minutes, windshield wipers working overtime against the downpour. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Tell me everything." Trevor kept his eyes on the road, both hands gripping the wheel. "After the business went under, I hit rock bottom. Lost the house, lost my marriage, lost my self-respect. I was living in a crappy apartment in Surrey, working security jobs to make rent. Skip the life story. Get to Kyle, right? 6 months ago, I saw Ashley on TV at some charity event. She was giving this speech about grief and loss, looking every inch the tragic widow. The whole performance made me sick. But I remembered Tyler Morrison from years back. He'd tried to screw me on a construction contract. Dirty even then, rumors of kickbacks and bribes." Trevor reached into the center console, pulled out a thick manila envelope, and tossed it in my lap. "Open it." Inside were bank statements, printed emails, photographs, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, wire transfers from Kyle's company, MJT Technologies, to shell corporations in Panama. Dates going back 2 years, all before Kyle's disappearance. Tyler was embezzling through fake vendor contracts, Trevor explained. Ashley had access to the company accounts as Kyle's wife and as head of finance. They'd been skimming money for months before Kyle noticed the irregularities. I held up one of the emails. It was from Kyle's company address dated 3 days before his disappearance. Subject line, financial audit required minus urgent discrepancies found. Kyle was going to expose them, I said, and they couldn't let that happen. But here's the thing about making someone disappear in the mountains. It's risky. Bodies have a way of turning up and questions get asked. So instead of killing him outright, they did something else. Trevor pulled up another photo on his phone. Kyle in what looked like a hospital room, staring blankly at the ceiling. His eyes were vacant, drugged, nothing like the sharp, intelligent man who'd built a successful tech company from nothing. They've been keeping him alive but heavily sedated. Trevor continued. The facility staff think he's a legitimate brain injury patient named David Foster. They're not part of the conspiracy, just doing their jobs. But the doctor managing his care, Dr. Wade Peterson, he's been ensuring Kyle never becomes lucid enough to remember who he is or try to escape. My hands were shaking as I stared at the photo. Those bastards. They destroyed my family for money. I know you want to kill them, Brady. I would too. But we're going to destroy them the right way, with evidence, prosecutors, and prison cells. Melissa wouldn't want you throwing your life away on revenge. The mention of my wife's name hit like a punch to the gut. Don't you dare talk about Melissa. You didn't even come to her funeral. I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Trevor's jaw tightened, but right now, I need you to focus. We're about 4 hours from Kelowna. I've been watching the facility for a week, learning routines, identifying weak points, visiting hours end at 8 p.m. There's a shift change at 9 p.m. That's our window. Our window to what? Just walk in and demand they release him? I've got fake credentials. We're David Foster's long-lost uncles, finally tracked down through DNA ancestry websites. I've got forged documents from the trust administrator authorizing the visit. The receptionist won't question it, and if Kyle doesn't recognize us, if he's too far gone, then we get him out anyway, and hope he recovers once we can provide proper medical care. But Brady, you need to prepare yourself. The man we're about to see might not be the son you remember. 2.5 years of what they've done to him, it leaves marks. I thought about the vibrant, successful man Kyle had been, the devoted father who'd light up whenever he talked about Nicole, the son who'd call me every Sunday just to check in. Now he was reduced to a drugged shell, trapped in some nightmare facility, while his wife collected insurance money and played the grieving widow. What about Nicole? I asked. If Ashley's arrested, what happens to my granddaughter? She comes to you. You're her only blood relative besides Ashley's parents, and they're both dead. You'd be her legal guardian. Trevor glanced at me. The thought of having Nicole back in your life should give you something to fight for. It should have filled me with joy, but all I felt was hollow rage. Ashley had stolen 2 years from Kyle and Nicole, from me and Kyle, from all of us. She'd played the perfect daughter-in-law while systematically destroying our family from the inside. We stopped for gas outside Kamloops. Trevor went inside to pay while I stretched my legs, trying to process everything. The rain had finally stopped, revealing a field of stars. It felt wrong that the universe could be so beautiful on a night like this. When Trevor came back with coffee and sandwiches, I was ready with more questions. Walk me through exactly what we're doing when we get there. The facility is called Sunrise Manor, about 20 minutes outside Kelowna. Looks like a high-end retirement home from the outside. Lots of windows, nice landscaping. The kind of place wealthy families use to warehouse inconvenient relatives. He handed me a cup of coffee. We park in the visitor lot. Walk in like we belong there. I do most of the talking. I've been practicing the story for weeks. What's our cover? We're the Foster brothers. You're Thomas Foster. I'm Robert Foster. Our nephew David was in a hiking accident 2 years ago, lost his memory, and we've been searching for him ever since through ancestry DNA testing. We just got a hit through the facility's database search. We're emotional, grateful, maybe a little overwhelmed, and the paperwork Trevor patted his jacket pocket. Trust authorization, DNA test results, even fake driver's licenses with the Foster names. I've got contacts in the document business, learned that in my PI work. The rest of the drive passed in tense silence. I kept staring at the photo of Kyle, memorizing every detail, the beard they'd let grow wild, the vacant expression, the hospital gown that made him look like just another patient instead of my successful, accomplished son. As we approached Kelowna, Trevor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and swore. What is it? Text from one of my contacts. Ashley was seen at the airport this morning with luggage. She might be planning to run. My blood ran cold. If she disappears, she won't get far. I've been feeding information to Detective Rachel Murphy with the RCMP for weeks. They're building a case, but they need Kyle's testimony to make it stick. That's why tonight is crucial. The facility appeared ahead of us, nestled in hills overlooking Okanagan Lake. It looked exactly as Trevor had described, more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Warm lights glowed in the windows, and the landscaping was immaculate. A place where money could buy silence and discretion. Trevor parked near the back of the visitor lot. Remember, we're Thomas and Robert Foster. We're here to visit our nephew David. We're hopeful but nervous. We want to help with his recovery, maybe even discuss taking him home if his condition permits. What if he recognizes me? What if he calls me Dad? Then we play it off as confusion. Brain injury patients often mix up faces and names. The staff will expect it. Trevor checked his watch. It's 7:45. Perfect timing. Ready. I took a deep breath, thinking about Melissa, about Kyle. About little Nicole who barely remembered her father. Let's go get my son. The lobby was all warm wood and soft lighting, designed to make families feel like they were checking a loved one into a spa instead of an institution. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. A young woman behind the reception desk looked up as we approached, her professional smile faltering slightly when she saw our tense expressions. "Good evening," Trevor said, his voice perfectly calm. "We're here to see David Foster. I'm Robert Foster. This is my brother Thomas. We've traveled quite a distance." Trevor slid the forged documents across the reception desk with practiced ease. "We've been searching for David through ancestry DNA testing for months. When we finally got a match through the facility database, we knew we had to come right away." The receptionist, whose name tag read Jennifer, examined the paperwork carefully. She typed something into her computer, frowned slightly, then looked up with renewed warmth. "Of course, Mr. Foster. How wonderful that you found each other after all this time. David should still be in the common room, though I should mention visiting hours end in about 30 minutes. We understand completely," Trevor replied. "We're just so grateful for any time we can have with him. We've waited so long for this moment." She led us down a hallway that smelled of industrial cleaner and overcooked vegetables. Through open doorways, I glimpsed other residents, elderly people in wheelchairs, middle-aged men and women staring at television screens, the forgotten debris of lives interrupted by injury, illness, and family abandonment. Melissa had spent her final weeks in a place not unlike this. I'd hated every minute of it. "David is one of our quieter residents," Jennifer explained as we walked. The head trauma affected his memory significantly. He doesn't remember much from before his accident, and he can get confused about people and places. Dr. Peterson says it's common with his type of injury. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and tell her that David was my son Kyle, that there'd been no hiking accident, that everything she believed about him was a lie. Instead, I nodded sympathetically and kept walking. The common room was larger than I'd expected, filled with mismatched furniture and a large screen TV playing some nature documentary about whales. Maybe a dozen residents were scattered around the space, some watching the screen, others lost in private worlds that no one else could access. And there, in a wheelchair positioned by the window overlooking the darkening lake, was Kyle. He was thinner than in Trevor's photograph, his face gaunt beneath a scraggly brown beard. He wore gray sweatpants and a faded blue t-shirt, with white hospital slippers on his feet. His hands lay motionless in his lap, and his eyes, God, his eyes were empty, staring at that nature documentary like it held the secrets of the universe, but seeing absolutely nothing. My chest felt like it was caving in. This broken shell was my vibrant, successful son who'd called me every Sunday, who'd built a company from nothing, who'd been the most devoted father I'd ever seen. Ashley and Tyler had done this to him. They'd stolen his mind, his identity, his very soul. Trevor approached first, pulling up a plastic chair beside the wheelchair. "David," he said softly, "my name is Robert. This is my brother Thomas. We're your uncles. We've been looking for you for a very long time." Kyle's eyes drifted slowly from the TV screen to Trevor's face, the movement sluggish like he was moving underwater. There was no recognition there, no spark of understanding, just a vague chemical placidity that made my stomach turn. "David," Trevor tried again, his voice gentle but insistent. "Do you remember us at all? We're family, I don't." Kyle's voice was thick, slurred by whatever cocktail of drugs they'd been pumping into him. "Don't remember anything from before here. The doctors say I had an accident, hit my head on rocks while hiking." He blinked slowly, struggling to focus. "Are you really my family?" I couldn't help myself. Despite every warning Trevor had given me, despite the need to maintain our cover, I knelt down beside Kyle's wheelchair and took his hand in mine. It was limp, unresponsive, but it was still my son's hand. "Kyle," I whispered, barely audible. "It's Dad. I'm here. I've been looking for you everywhere." For just a moment, maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Something flickered in his eyes. A ghost of recognition there, and gone so fast I might have dreamed it. His fingers twitched slightly in my grip, "Dad." The word came out as barely a breath. Then his face contorted with confusion and what looked like pain. "No, I don't. They said I don't have family. Dr. Peterson said nobody was looking for me. He said I was alone." "They lied to you, son," I said, tears streaming down my face now. "They've been lying to you for 2 years, but I'm going to get you out of here. I promise you that, Thomas." Trevor's voice was tight with warning. "Someone's coming." I looked up to see a man in a white coat striding across the common room toward us, his expression dark with suspicion. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 45, with the kind of perfectly styled hair that screamed expensive salon and vanity. Everything about him looked polished, controlled, and utterly false. "I'm Dr. Peterson," he announced, not offering his hand. I'm David's attending physician. I wasn't informed we had visitors this evening, especially not family members. We have full authorization from the trust administrator, Trevor said, standing to face him. He pulled out his phone, showing Peterson something on the screen. Jennifer at the front desk verified our credentials. We're David's uncles. We've been searching for him through genealogy databases. Did she now, Doctor? Peterson's eyes moved between Trevor and me, calculating, measuring, looking for cracks in our story. And you're claiming to be related to Mr. Foster. How exactly? We're his father's brothers, Trevor replied smoothly. David's father was our older brother, Michael. He died in a car accident when David was young. We lost touch with David after that, but we never stopped looking. I watched Peterson's face carefully as Trevor spun the lie. There was something there, a flicker of nervousness, maybe even fear. This bastard knew exactly who Kyle was. He was part of it, had to be. I see. And has the trust administrator also authorized you to discuss David's medical history? Peterson's voice had an edge now, because from what I'm observing, you seem to be making rather specific claims about his condition and care that go well beyond a simple family reunion. I stood up slowly, positioning myself between Peterson and Kyle. Our nephew has been missing from our lives for too long, Doctor. We just want to understand his condition and explore options for his care. Maybe even discuss the possibility of taking him home if his recovery permits. Home? Peterson's laugh was cold, artificial. Mr. Foster suffered severe traumatic brain injury. He requires constant medical supervision and careful medication management. He's not a candidate for home care. I assure you. What kind of medications? I pressed. What exactly are you treating him for? Dr. Peterson's face flushed red. That information is confidential. If you continue making these inappropriate inquiries, I'll have to ask security to escort you from the premises. Go ahead, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Call security. Call the RCMP while you're at it. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your patient David Foster, who doesn't have a single medical record predating his admission here 2 years ago. No previous doctors, no emergency room visits, no medical history anywhere else in the country. Almost like he materialized out of thin air. Dr. Peterson took a step back, and I saw the exact moment he realized he was caught. His hand moved toward his pocket, toward his phone, probably to call Tyler or Ashley and warn them we were onto the scheme. Trevor was faster. He grabbed Peterson's wrist, twisted it behind his back with the efficiency of someone who dealt with plenty of uncooperative subjects during his PI career. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Doc, Trevor said calmly. See, I've been recording this entire conversation. He pulled out his phone with his free hand, showed Peterson the screen. And I've already sent copies of all the evidence we've gathered, the bank statements, the emails, the photographs, everything, to Detective Rachel Murphy with the RCMP Major Crimes Unit. You're bluffing, Peterson said, but his voice was shaking now. Am I? Detective Murphy is on her way here right now with a warrant for your arrest. You've got maybe 15 minutes before this place is crawling with cops. So here's what's going to happen. Trevor's grip tightened on the doctor's arm. You're going to go back to your office and sit down quietly. And if you do anything, and I mean anything, to interfere with us or harm David, I will personally make sure that in addition to everything else, you're charged with attempted murder. Are we clear? Dr. Peterson nodded frantically. Trevor released him, and he practically ran from the room, his white coat flapping behind him like the wings of some panicked bird. Jennifer, the receptionist, had noticed the commotion and was hurrying toward us. Confusion written all over her face. Trevor intercepted her smoothly. There's been a situation with Dr. Peterson, he told her. The RCMP are on their way to investigate some irregularities in patient care. We need you to remain calm and make sure none of the residents are disturbed. Can you do that for us? She nodded, wide-eyed, probably wondering what she'd gotten herself into by working at this place. David is going home, I said, already moving Kyle's wheelchair toward the exit. For the first time in 2 years, my son is going home. We made it to the parking lot before the full reality of what we'd just accomplished hit me. I stood there in the cool evening air, one hand on Kyle's wheelchair, and started shaking. We'd actually done it. We'd found him. We'd gotten him out. Kyle looked up at me, still confused but more alert now than he'd been inside. The fresh air seemed to be helping clear some of the pharmaceutical fog from his brain. Don't cry, Dad, he said, his words still slurred, but more coherent than before. It's okay. I'm okay now. You're damn right you are. I managed, wiping my eyes. Police cars appeared on the horizon, lights flashing red and blue against the darkening sky. Trevor hadn't been lying about Detective Murphy. Within minutes, the facility was surrounded by RCMP vehicles. Murphy herself, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, took our statements while paramedics examined Kyle, testing his pupil responses, checking his vital signs, documenting the chemical lobotomy he'd been subjected to for the past 2 years. We've got arrest warrants for Ashley Collins, Tyler Morrison, and Dr. Wade Peterson, Murphy told us. Vancouver PD picked up Ashley and Tyler about an hour ago. They were trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands with fake passports. Peterson's already in custody here. What kind of charges are we looking at? I asked, with the evidence your brother collected. Fraud, embezzlement, kidnapping, false imprisonment, identity fraud, conspiracy. The Crown prosecutor is going to have a field day. They're looking at 20 years minimum, possibly more. They transported Kyle to Kelowna General Hospital, where a neurologist confirmed what we already suspected. Years of inappropriate antipsychotic medications had left him in a chemical fog, but there was no permanent brain damage. Dr. Sarah Chen, his new attending physician, was optimistic about his recovery. Given time and proper care, he should regain most, if not all, of his cognitive function, she explained. It's going to take weeks to fully clear his system of the medications he's been on, but his brain scans show no structural damage. It was 4 a.m. when they finally let me see Kyle in his hospital room. He was hooked up to monitors and IV lines, fluids designed to flush the poison from his system, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been at the facility. More present, more like the son I remembered. When I walked in, he turned his head toward me and smiled, a real smile this time, not the vacant expression I'd seen earlier. "Hey, Dad," he said, and his voice was stronger now. More like himself. "I've been trying to remember things. Is Nicole okay? She must be so big now." I pulled a chair up beside his bed, took his hand in mine. This time, he squeezed back. "She's 6 years old and beautiful and brilliant, and she's going to lose her mind with joy when she sees you." I kept trying to hold on to her face, her name, but the drugs made everything so fuzzy, Kyle said quietly. Sometimes I'd surface enough to know something was wrong, that I wasn't supposed to be there, but then they'd increase my dosage and I'd sink back under. His voice broke. "How long was I gone, Dad? How long did they have me?" 2 years. "But you're safe now. They can't hurt you anymore." He was quiet for a moment, staring at the ceiling. "Ashley's really in custody, her and Tyler both. The RCMP have enough evidence to put them away for decades. She was my wife. I loved her. I trusted her with everything. Tears were streaming down his face now, and she tried to erase me. She took my daughter and tried to make me disappear completely." I squeezed his hand. "I know, son. I know. How did you find me?" "The police gave up after 6 months. You told me once you'd spent everything trying to find me. Trevor found you. He's been working as a private investigator. He's the one who put it all together, who tracked you down." Kyle's eyebrows rose. "Uncle Trevor, I thought you two weren't speaking." "We weren't. Hadn't talked in 15 years. I paused, thinking about how much had changed in one night. He showed up at my cabin and told me to get in his car. Said he knew where you were, and thank God, he was right. Trevor appeared in the doorway around dawn, looking exhausted but satisfied. He hesitated there for a moment, uncertain of his welcome, until Kyle held out his hand. "Uncle Trevor, thank you. I don't even know how to begin thanking you." Trevor crossed the room, took Kyle's hand in both of his own. "I'm sorry I didn't find you sooner, Kyle. I should have been looking from day one." "You found me," Kyle interrupted. "That's what matters. You brought Dad, and you got me out. That's what matters." 2 weeks later, I brought Nicole to the hospital. She'd been staying with me on Vancouver Island since Ashley's arrest, slowly adjusting to the truth about her father with the help of a family therapist Detective Murphy had recommended. She gripped my hand tight as we walked down the hospital corridor, her small face pale with nervousness. "What if he doesn't remember me, Grandpa?" "He remembers you, sweetheart. He never stopped remembering you." Kyle was sitting up in bed when we entered, stronger now after 2 weeks of detox and proper nutrition. The doctor said he'd make a full recovery, though the psychological scars would take longer to heal. When he saw Nicole, his whole face transformed with pure joy. "Hey, beautiful," he said, his voice trembling with emotion. Nicole stared at him for a long moment as if she couldn't quite believe he was real. Then she dropped my hand and ran to him, throwing her small arms around his neck. "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." I stepped back into the hallway, giving them privacy for their reunion. Trevor was there, had driven up from Vancouver to witness this moment. We stood together watching through the window as Kyle held his daughter, both of them crying, both holding on like they'd never let go again. "Hell of a thing," Trevor said quietly. "Yeah," I agreed. "Hell of a thing." Ashley and Tyler were denied bail. Their trial was scheduled for the following year. Dr. Peterson accepted a plea deal in exchange for testifying against them. The facility was shut down permanently, with other patients transferred to legitimate care facilities. Kyle moved in with Nicole and me on Vancouver Island while he continued his recovery. Some days were harder than others, nightmares, moments of confusion, flashes of anger at what had been stolen from him, but slowly, gradually, he came back to himself. Trevor visited most weekends now, driving up from Vancouver with groceries and stories, and a willingness to just be present. He taught Nicole to fish off my dock and helped Kyle navigate the complex legal process of reclaiming his identity, his company, and his life. One evening in late autumn, the four of us sat on my porch watching the sunset paint the water gold and red. Nicole was curled up against Kyle's side, half asleep after a day of playing on the beach, while Trevor nursed a beer and I worked on my evening whiskey. "I've been thinking about what I want to do next," Kyle said. "I spent 2 years having my life stolen from me. I don't want to waste another minute. I want to help people, others who've been wrongfully committed or whose families have hidden them away or who've just fallen through the cracks of the system. I've got contacts in the investigation world." Trevor offered people who specialize in missing persons, wrongful commitments. "If you're serious about this, I could make some introductions. I'm serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life." Nicole stirred against his side. "Will you still have time for me, Daddy?" Kyle kissed the top of her head. "Sweetheart, I've got nothing but time for you. But yeah, I'll probably be working on this too." "Is that okay?" "It's okay," she mumbled sleepily. "As long as you always come home, always." Kyle promised. "I'll always come home." I looked at my son, my granddaughter, my brother, my family, broken and rebuilt, scarred, but surviving and stronger than before. The storm had passed. The nightmare was over, and for the first time in 2 years, I could see the future clearly again. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when this all started, sitting alone in that cabin convinced I'd lost everything that mattered, but it was an ending that felt earned, real, true. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who can hurt us deepest. But family, real family, will never stop fighting to bring you home. Evil might steal years from your life, but love has a way of making every moment that comes after worth the wait.